Difficult people are everywhere. At work, in families, in friendships, online, and most of the stress they cause doesn't come from what they do. It comes from how much energy we spend trying to control, correct, or change them. We replay conversations. We plan responses. We argue in our heads. We wonder why they act the way they do. And without realizing it, we give them power over our emotions, our focus, and our peace. The let them theory is simple, but it's not easy. It says this: let them talk, let them judge, let them misunderstand, let them react, let them be difficult. Not because they're right, but because you don't need to control them to be okay. The moment you stop trying to manage other people's behavior, you reclaim control over your own. Most people exhaust themselves trying to get difficult people to see reason. They explain, they justify, they defend, they hope that if they say the right words, the other person will suddenly become reasonable, respectful, or self-aware. But difficult people don't change because of better explanations. They change only when they choose to, and most of the time, they don't. That's where letting them comes in. Let them interrupt, let them complain, let them disapprove, let them think whatever they want. Your job is not to correct their personality. Your job is to protect your energy. When you stop reacting emotionally, you stop feeding the behavior. Difficult people thrive on reactions. Calm detachment starves the drama. Letting them does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means you don't argue with reality. If someone is passive-aggressive, let them be passive-aggressive while you set clear boundaries. If someone is negative, let them be negative while you choose not to absorb it. If someone wants conflict, let them want it without joining the fight. You're not surrendering, you're choosing where your attention goes. One of the hardest parts of letting them is accepting that some people will never give you the response you want. They won't apologize, they won't validate you, they won't admit they're wrong. And when you stop expecting them to, something powerful happens. You stop feeling disappointed. Expectations create emotional hooks. Letting them removes the hook. Difficult people lose influence when they realize they can't pull you into their emotional storms. You don't explain yourself repeatedly. You don't overreact. You don't mirror their tone. You stay neutral, clear, and steady. That steadiness sends a message. You are not available for chaos. Let them misunderstand you. Clarity does not require agreement. You can be clear once and still be misunderstood. That's okay. You don't need to chase understanding from someone committed to misunderstanding. When you let them think what they want, you free yourself from the exhausting need to be seen a certain way. Let them be uncomfortable with your boundaries. Discomfort is not danger. When you say no, when you step back, when you stop engaging, some people will react. Let them. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your self-respect. The let them theory shifts your focus inward. Instead of asking, why are they like this? You ask, why am I giving this so much power? That question changes everything. You begin to respond instead of react. You choose silence instead of arguments. You choose distance instead of drama. And slowly, the emotional weight lifts. Difficult people don't disappear when you let them, but their impact shrinks. They take up less space in your mind, less space in your day, less space in your emotional life. And that's the real win. Not controlling them, but no longer being controlled by them. When you let them be who they are, you get to be who you are. Calm, grounded, clear, unbothered. That's not avoidance, that's strength. One of the most exhausting habits people develop is the belief that if they just say the right thing, explain it clearly enough, or react strongly enough, they can control how others behave. This belief quietly drains energy because it places responsibility for other people's emotions, reactions, and choices onto your shoulders. The truth is simpler and more freeing. You do not control people. You never did. What you control is how you respond when they do what they do. The moment you accept this, your stress begins to drop. Most frustration with difficult people comes from resistance. You resist who they are. You resist how they speak. You resist how unfair or unreasonable they seem. And that resistance creates tension inside you. The let them theory removes that resistance. Let them talk the way they talk. Let them behave the way they behave. Not because it's acceptable, but because fighting reality costs you peace. Reality doesn't need your approval to exist. When you stop trying to control people, you stop reacting automatically. You stop snapping back. You stop defending yourself emotionally. You stop explaining things to people who are not listening. Instead, you pause. That pause is power. It gives you space to choose a response that serves you, not your ego. Control is often confused with strength. But reacting emotionally is not control, it's surrender. It means someone else dictated your emotional state. Real control looks calm. It looks measured. It looks like silence when silence is smarter than words. It looks like a short, clear response instead of a long explanation. It looks like walking away without needing the other person to understand. Difficult people often push boundaries to see what they can get. When you react emotionally, you show them where the buttons are. When you respond calmly, you show them those buttons don't work anymore. That doesn't mean the behavior stops immediately, but it loses its impact. And when impact disappears, power shifts. Choosing your response also means choosing what you don't respond to. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every tone deserves correction. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. You conserve energy by responding selectively. That selectivity is maturity. The let them theory doesn't make you passive. It makes you intentional. You stop trying to manage the uncontrollable and start mastering the one thing that truly belongs to you, your reactions. Over time, that mastery becomes visible. People sense it. They treat you differently, not because you changed them, but because you changed how you show up. People will react. They always have. They react with anger, defensiveness, sarcasm, silence, judgment, or exaggeration. Many of those reactions have nothing to do with you, and everything to do with their own emotional regulation. The mistake is allowing their reactions to dictate your behavior, mood, or decision. The let them theory invites you to let reactions exist without letting them take over. When someone reacts strongly, there's an instinct to either match their intensity or shut down completely. Both are forms of surrender. Matching intensity escalates the situation. Shutting down internalizes it. Neither serves you. Letting them react means acknowledging that their response is theirs to carry, not yours to fix. You don't need to calm everyone down. You don't need to justify yourself because someone is upset. You don't need to rush into damage control. Emotional reactions feel urgent, but urgency does not equal importance. Many reactions burn out on their own when they are not fed. Difficult people often rely on emotional leverage. They raise their voice, accuse, guilt, or dramatize to provoke a reaction. When they don't get one, the leverage disappears. Calm neutrality is not indifference, it is discipline. It tells your nervous system that you are safe even when others are not regulated. Letting reactions pass without internalizing them requires practice. It means noticing your impulse to respond and choosing not to act on it immediately. It means breathing before speaking. It means reminding yourself that you are not responsible for managing someone else's feelings. When you stop letting reactions rule you, your confidence stabilizes. You don't feel thrown off by criticism or praise. You don't chase reassurance. You don't spiral after conflict. Your emotional center stays intact. People notice when their reactions no longer control you. Some will push harder at first. That's normal. They're testing old patterns. Stay consistent. Calm consistency is louder than arguments. Over time, reactions lose their grip because they no longer produce results. Let them react. Stay steady. That steadiness becomes your reputation. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness or avoidance. In reality, it is emotional discipline. It is the ability to care without being consumed, to observe without absorbing, to engage without entanglement. Detachment does not mean you don't feel. It means feelings don't control your actions. Difficult people thrive when they sense emotional attachment to outcomes. When you need them to understand you, agree with you, or validate you, they hold power. Detachment removes that power. You still communicate clearly. You still hold boundaries, but you release the need for a specific response. Emotional discipline means recognizing when engagement is productive and when it's draining. It means stepping back, not because you're afraid, but because you're selective. You don't argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding. You don't invest deeply where there is no mutual respect. Detachment creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, you regain choice. You stop reacting on autopilot. You stop personalizing behavior that isn't personal. You stop trying to rescue situations that don't require your involvement. This discipline protects your energy. You don't replay conversations endlessly. You don't carry resentment into unrelated moments. You allow things to pass through instead of staying stuck inside you. Detachment also clarifies relationships. Some people drift away when you stop over-investing. That's information, not loss. Others step up because the dynamic becomes healthier. Either way, you gain clarity. Strong people are not emotionally numb. They are emotionally regulated. Detachment is regulation in action. Trying to manage people is exhausting. You anticipate reactions. You adjust your words. You walk on eggshells. You replay scenarios. All of that mental labor steals peace. The let them theory invites you to step out of that role entirely. You are not responsible for how others interpret your boundaries. You are not responsible for their comfort with your decisions. You are not responsible for their emotional maturity. When you stop managing others, your mental load lightens immediately. Peace grows when you accept that people will be who they are, regardless of your efforts. Some will complain, some will misunderstand, some will resist change. Let them. Your peace is not built on their cooperation. This shift frees enormous energy. You become more present, more focused, more grounded. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop trying to prevent reactions that are outside your control. Managing others creates anxiety because it keeps your nervous system on alert. Letting them exist as they are allows your system to settle. You move from vigilance to stability. Peace is not passive, it's intentional. It's the result of choosing where your energy goes. When you stop managing others, you redirect the energy back to yourself. Letting people be themselves is one of the most underrated acts of self-respect. Most stress in human interaction comes from resistance. The quiet, constant effort to change, correct, manage, or soften other people so we can feel more comfortable. We think if they spoke differently, reacted differently, understood us better, or behaved more reasonably, then we could relax. But the opposite is true. More energy you spend trying to shape others, the less freedom you have to be yourself. The moment you stop trying to manage who they are, you regain space to exist as you are. When you allow people to show up as they truly are, you stop living in negotiation mode. You're no longer filtering every word, adjusting your tone, or monitoring your behavior to prevent someone else's reaction. That constant self-editing drains energy. It forces you into a role that isn't authentic. Letting them be themselves removes that pressure. You no longer have to anticipate, accommodate, or over-explain. You simply respond from clarity instead of anxiety. Many people fear this idea because they associate it with tolerance of bad behavior. Letting someone be themselves does not mean accepting disrespect, manipulation, or chaos. It means you stop trying to change their nature and instead choose how close they get to you. You don't argue with who someone is. You adjust access. That shift is powerful because it puts your energy back under your control. When you let people be who they are, patterns become obvious. You see who listens and who dismisses, who respects boundaries and who resents them, who grows and who repeats the same behavior. Without interference, truth reveals itself. And truth gives you clarity. Clarity allows you to make grounded decisions without guilt or confusion. Trying to change people keeps you emotionally tied to outcomes you don't control. You hope they'll respond differently next time. You wait for improvement. You invest more explanation, more patience, more emotional labor. Letting them be themselves ends that cycle. It releases you from expectation. And when expectation dissolves, disappointment loses its grip. This freedom shows up internally first. Your nervous system relaxes. You stop bracing for reactions. You stop replaying conversations. You stop questioning whether you said too much or not enough. You become more present in your own life instead of mentally managing someone else's behavior. Externally, your presence shifts. You become steadier, more grounded, less reactive. People sense when you are no longer trying to control them, and many respond differently. Some will step up, others will step away. Both outcomes bring relief. You no longer have to chase alignment. You allow alignment to reveal itself. Letting others be themselves also frees your voice. You speak more directly because you're not trying to protect someone from their own emotion. You stop cushioning truths to keep peace. You say what needs to be said without over-explaining. That clarity feels like confidence, even when your tone is calm. This approach also dissolves resentment. Resentment grows when you expect people to be different without telling them, or when you keep giving while secretly hoping they'll change. Letting them be themselves ends that silent contract. You stop giving with expectation. You give by choice, or you don't give at all. Either way, resentment fades. Freedom doesn't come from control, it comes from acceptance. Not approval, not agreement. Acceptance of reality as it is. When you accept who people are, you stop fighting what already exists. That energy returns to you. You invest it in your growth, your boundaries, your peace. As you practice this, you begin to recognize how much of your identity was shaped by reaction. You notice how often you adjusted yourself to keep harmony. Letting them be themselves allows you to shed those adaptations. You reconnect with your natural tone, your natural pace, your natural preferences. You don't perform, you show up. This doesn't isolate you. It actually attracts healthier connections. People who respect you feel safer around your clarity. People who relied on your emotional labor feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is information. You don't argue with it. You observe it. Over time, you stop measuring your worth through others' responses. You stop seeking validation through harmony. You stop shrinking to avoid friction. You stand where you are, speak how you speak, and move at your pace. Letting them be themselves gives you permission to do the same, without apology, without guilt, and without fear.